GM everyone, we're back with another Touch Grass podcast. Today we have Justin from Katana. It's one of the hottest chains in DeFi right now. I'm a user, early user, day one user of Katana. I have deposited, hoping to win some prizes and stuff. We have the man himself leading charge for Katana, and we have a ton of questions how they're approaching this new chain in collaboration with Polygon and GSR. Welcome to the show, Justin.
Hello, thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Awesome. Could you give like a quick intro about yourself, what you do at Katana, and yeah, your journey in crypto as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to do so. Yeah, I'm Justin Havens, aka Crypto Texan on Twitter. I started in crypto back in like 2017, and then DeFi started to come into the picture, and that's when I really started getting involved. So I worked in traditional banking for 13 years as like a credit analyst, financial analyst, and then like a lending officer as well. And it just kind of got to the point where I started getting so involved that I started working with a DAO on Ethereum called the Index Coop. So I was working full time at the bank and then part time anonymously as Crypto Texan for the Index Coop. And then eventually it got deeper and deeper to the point where I just decided, I just need to start doing this full time. And through my work on the BD side with the Index Coop, I met a lot of people at PolygoN and the PolygoN DeFi team. And then, when I made it known to my network that I was ready to go full time crypto, the Polygon DeFi team reached out and offered me a position. And then I started working at Polygon, and I was at Polygon for about 3 years. But now, as of I guess May, I'm now full time at Katana. So, in my role at Katana, I'm on the founding core team, and I really focus on the marketing side of things. But I love DeFi, and I for a long time I've been trying to chase that DeFi summer feeling that we had back in like 2021. And now with Katana, I really do feel like it's DeFi summer again. So it's a really exciting time for
Yeah,
everyone working on the team, but for me personally, very excited.
for sure.
Good on,
I feel like
thanks.
everyone has like one of these stories on how they got into the industry, and it's like a Soham Parikh light. Like, I was working somewhere, I was working there part time, then I joined in full time. Justin, start us off. Like, where did the vision for Katana come from? Like, talk to us about like internal discussions. Like, how many months in the working was this project? Like, when was the first time this was discussed? Give us like a timeline and how it actually started.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I think depending on who you ask, kind of that depends on where they say like when the discussions actually started happening, because it just kind of evolved over time as the ag layer kind of came into the fold with what Polygon was building, and we really wanted like a DeFi focused chain. And we also had a lot of like heavy DeFi users at Polygon on the Katana side, and then like working with projects, DeFi projects that we're very close to. We kind of took a step back and we said, what is it that we really want in a DeFi chain as heavy DeFi users? And, when it came down to it, like no surprise, it was like, well, we want high yield that's sustainable, and we want deep liquidity as well. And then we like did a couple surveys with some other DeFi builders and users that we know, and that's what came back: high yield, high sustainable, real yield, and deep baseline, stable, sticky liquidity as well. Which it seems like so simple. Like that's obviously what DeFi users are going to want. But then that was like our core basis. Like, all right, let's engineer this chain backwards and create the architecture for the chain and the mechanisms involved to really just maximize for those two main things. Security, obviously also important, but that's like just a base layer default on the Polygon side anyway, and with the projects that we were working with. So but yeah, so that's kind of how it came into the fold. And then we also just kind of we looked around and looked at other DeFi projects and other blockchains and looked at like some of the innovative mechanisms that they had in place and try to improve upon them and refine them a little bit and kind of create this DeFi flywheel, which we call the Katana DeFi flywheel, and we can get into more information on that a little bit later. But that's really how it all started to come together. It's just, you know, a bunch of heavy DeFi users wanting to build a DeFi chain that we really wanted to use. So it really is a DeFi chain for DeFi users, built by DeFi users.
Are there any projects in particular that really inspired you? Like, you know, any sort of references you want to name out that, you know, was
Yeah,
an inspiration?
sure. I mean, there were, you know, I think like not all these are necessarily like inspiration that we drew some, but also just like some popular parallels that some people are drawing from just like in the community. But, you know, if you look at Olympus DAO and their mechanism for protocol owned liquidity, where the protocol actually owns that liquidity and manages it in a way that is more efficient than maybe like the open market. And, you know, we kind of took that and we're like, hey, we should have chain owned liquidity, you know, liquidity that's managed by the Katana Foundation that does provide this base layer of liquidity. That way, you know, no matter what the market's doing, whether it's a bull market, like liquidity is going to be great. But even like in the bear market, it's like this helps provide like this bear market resilience where, you know, when the market goes down, people typically exit the crypto space in general. But we still want to have this base layer liquidity for people to actually still participate in DeFi and make the swaps and borrow the loans they want to. And so, you know, so Olympus DAO kind of had a little inspiration there. And then there's some parallels between like the vault bridge mechanism that we're using and Blast, right? And so, but there's differences here, right? With Blast, you know, users would bridge over and they would receive this yield bearing token and they would just keep it in their wallet, and they didn't really have much of an incentive to actually use that token in DeFi on Blast. And so the Ag Layer or Vault Bridge is actually a product that's built by the Ag Layer team. Katana just happens to be the first project, the first L2 that's actually using Vault Bridge. But the way that it works is users bridge to Katana. Those assets that are sitting in the bridge are actually deployed into layer one yield bearing strategies on Morpho. And then that yield that's being generated is harvested by the Katana Foundation. It is routed back to Katana, and then that yield that's harvested from L1 goes to further boost the yield in DeFi pools on Katana, right? So that encourages productive TVL. That's one of the core metrics that we really focus on, is we don't want assets just sitting idle in a user's wallet. We want to encourage users to actually use that in DeFi because that helps to grow the chain, that helps to create a healthy, thriving and robust DeFi ecosystem. And so that's one of the mechanics that we have there. So that's two parts of the inspiration. And then with the CAT token, we also drew some inspiration from like Solidity and these VE33 tokenomics models where users will have the ability, cat holders can stake their cat for VCAT, and they then get to vote on where future cat emissions go, which pools they're supporting, and then they get to earn fees from the pools that they support. So taking that Solidity model, but instead of applying it to just one DEX, it's a chain-wide type of tokenomics emission direction model that we're working with. So those are three of the main ones, and then there's other types of revenue sources that we help to boost chain activity and boost yield and create a deeper chain on liquidity as well. But those are kind of the main three right there.
It's like everything that you made money last cycle packaged into one.
Yeah, packaged into one, and also just like they complement each other very well, right? Yeah. Because when you have more users bridging to Katana, that creates deeper liquidity, yes, but it also creates higher yield because it's generating more yield in the vault bridge. And that higher yield attracts more liquidity, which generates higher yield. And, you know, there's also, I'll go ahead and talk about Agora and AUSD too, real quick. Agora is the native stablecoin of Katana. And comparing that to other centralized stablecoins like Circle and Tether, Circle and Tether, their stablecoins, those are backed by U.S. Treasuries off-chain, and those U.S. Treasuries earn yield, and that yield stays with Circle and Tether. So the holders of USDC and USDT, they don't really get the benefit of that yield that's generated off chain. With Agora, AUSD, they have a much different model where, yes, AUSD is backed by off-chain US treasuries, and those treasuries generate yield, and that yield, a significant portion of it is routed to the Katana Foundation, and the Katana Foundation uses that yield to boost the yield in AUSD denominated DeFi pools, right? And
Yeah.
so that kind of brings up like more bear market resilience too, right? We've got chain on liquidity. We talked about that already. But also when rates or when the market starts going down, typically the rates on US treasuries go up. So we kind of have this inverse effect where, if the market's not doing that well, the rates that you can get in DeFi pools on AUSD historically, based on the T-bill rate, will start to increase. And so not only will we have this base layer liquidity through channel liquidity, but we also have this kind of inverse bear market rate dynamic with AUSD and T-bills as well.
Yeah.
So I think I've hit pretty much all of the mechanics here in like this first little bit. So
Yeah, 100%. I think it's pretty unique. Like also like to take a step back, when did the idea first come about? Like I know that you guys just launched, like came out of, launched just a couple of months back. But when did the first idea come about? And also I want to know, like this is a new chain. How did the like when you guys were thinking about this, the relationship between Polygon as a chain and Katana as a chain? Because everyone is like another chain from Polygon, like that kind of. How do you guys think about that? Because there's a lot of things people can kind of fight. I don't want to say, but like another chain, another token kind of thing. So how do you guys think about that? And when did the first idea come about?
And I think just to take that a step further, like this is also incubated by GSR. Maybe tell us a little bit of backstory there, like when they got involved, like how are responsibilities split. Those are probably like four questions, but they probably tie in together.
that's okay. Yeah, I'll try to hit all of them. So if I don't hit all of them, just let me know, and I'll come back to them. But yeah, on the GSR side, yeah, we were looking for a partner that was very aligned with our vision and our mission of productive TVL, but also the concept of having like core applications, which I'll talk about here in a little bit. And we also wanted someone who was like very well respected in the space, and was very DeFi native and really understood what we were trying to do, right? Like when it comes down to it, like it all comes down to like being aligned with our vision and what we believe. And uh GSR, like they were the ones. They've got a great reputation. They, they do a lot of multi-stage, they're an active multi-stage investor. They do a lot of liquidity provision, treasury management. They've got a lot of market expertise, and just working with their team on a daily basis on like the mechanics of DeFi and liquidity management. It's just a no-brainer, a perfect partner. And when we started to talk to them a little bit about this idea that we had, they were very excited. And I can't think of a better partner for us to have on the Katana side for sure. And then what
And
was the
also,
other? Yeah.
and also, sorry to interrupt you. Just for our audience, can you kind of explain what the role of GCR is here? Are they providing liquidity? How are they kind of playing a role in kind of bootstrapping this DeFi flywheel for Katana? Like, what kind of role are they playing?
Yeah, I would say, yeah, they're a market maker, and like I said, kind of like a liquidity provision and management as well. So we have chain on liquidity, and so they're very involved in helping us. When you have chain on liquidity, you want to optimize for the most efficient way to deploy that liquidity for the long-term health of the chain, of the ecosystem. And they provide a lot of expertise there. Also on the business development side, I think they've been very, very helpful in getting some introductions to DeFi projects and partners, liquidity providers, and that's been very helpful, definitely in the early stages, and it's just going to continue to evolve. So, it's we're definitely leveraging their network. They're leveraging our network, and we're just kind of bouncing off of each other's expertise in the space. So I would say that's kind of where it is. It's incredibly collaborative. It's not very transactional. Like, what do they bring to the table? It's more of like, how do we work with them, and how do we benefit from each other, I would say.
Awesome. The other part of the initial question was, how is Polygon and Katana? What's the relationship like between these two chains? Uh, is it like the same entity? How you guys think about it, and how do you guys operate as two
Yeah, I
different
would say
chains?
if you look at the history of Polygon Labs, you've seen quite a few projects that have spun out onto their own. Avail is one, Polygon ID, which is now Bravado ID. Maiden is another one, and then Zisk, I think. Yeah, Zisk as well. And so this is this is very similar to that in the sense that like Katana has its own foundation, the Katana Foundation. Katana has its own employees, has its own social handle. And, from an incubation standpoint, Polygon was looking for a project to be like the DeFi, like the liquidity hub of the ag layer, right? And we were kind of looking around and seeing like who would be a good fit, who could we get to connect to the ag layer that could provide this in the way that we wanted to. And like I said, like we were starting to like create this vision, and it basically just said, let's find a partner who's willing to do this with us, GSR, and let's build it. And that's exactly what we did, right? And I think that gives us a lot of, what we have on this team are very, very passionate DeFi users and a lot of gigabrains who like understand the DeFi space very, very in depth. And this also gives us a lot of freedom to do things the way that we feel like they should be done. And then like on the token side, it's like, yeah, well, it's a completely separate project from Polygon, right? Polygon and GSR are incubators that have helped guide the Katana team to where we are now and where we will be in the future. It would just like Avail has their own token, Bravado ID and Maiden, they will have their own token in the future, possibly as well. So, and then Katana is very, very ag layer aligned, right? We are connected to the ag layer. The ag layer is Katana's canonical bridge to Ethereum, and Pol and Pol stakers helped power the ag layer. And so, when we were looking at the tokenomics there, it's like we want to be very aligned here. We want to be very community oriented. And so 15% of the total CAT token supply is going to Pol stakers in different tranches over the coming months, maybe years or so. But, we're of the opinion that Katana just benefits the ag layer, and the ag layer benefits Pol, and Pol benefits the ag layer, and it's just kind of this circular
No, for sure.
cohesive.
And you can sort of see that on Twitter as well. Like the next thing I was gonna ask was like, how has community reception been for Katana since you guys launched? Like, I feel like Katana launched, like Katana mindshare is top, but like Polygon mindshare has improved a lot since Katana launched as well. Like, how are you guys feeling about the community reception towards everything that you guys are doing?
It's a really good question. So we kind of were building in stealth for quite some time, and we did have like an early community that we were tapping. Just heavy DeFi users, builders, people we are very familiar with in the space to kind of like bounce ideas off of them as well and establish that early DeFi community. And then, yeah, then when we came out of the shadows and launched, a lot of people were very, very excited, and a lot of people were thinking, what the hell is this chain? And what's really exciting to me is like once people really start to dig in to how all the mechanisms work, or once I start to talk to someone and explain how the mechanisms work, they kind of have a light bulb go off and they think, oh, this is new. And that's what the reception that we've gotten from people is like, this is actually pretty refreshing. This isn't just another L2 spinning up. There's been a lot of thought into the mechanisms and how to grow this ecosystem long term. And I think that the reception has been really exciting. We're having a lot of
Yeah,
community members step up and make a lot of original content and coming at it from angles that maybe we haven't even thought about. And it's really exciting to see that.
Yeah, and also I think like the timing of it all was, I mean, perfect. I feel like with all this DeFi renaissance, with all these capital and attention being focused on DeFi, and now you have a chain particularly focused on DeFi with all this cool yield. So I think the timing also worked out pretty well. Uh, yeah, I mean, you mentioned the community part. I've seen you host these Twitter Spaces every day, educating people about Katana. That was refreshing, and also wanted to like understand your approach because you guys also did the Kaito leaderboard stuff, but a lot of things I've seen on the timeline is that genuine interest from people putting their money where their you know in this place and not just talking the bags or stuff like that. How do you kind of like bootstrap that community from scratch? And you guys just launched, I think, a couple of months back, right? So it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, we launched July 1st, June 30th. So we're about 18 days in right now. But then yeah, on the Kaito side, yeah, we did launch that 2 months ago, right? Because we started our pre-deposit campaign uh, about a month before mainnet launch. And when we were looking at the Kaito leaderboard, you know, the thing with Katana is, right, and we've kind of talked about this already, there's a lot of new material and new mechanisms that go into the Katana flywheel and the architecture of the chain, right? We've got Vault Bridge, we've got chain on liquidity, we've got core apps, sequencer fee redistribution, Agora's AUSD, and when it comes down to it, like that's a lot of information to take in. And so we kind of saw Kaido as like this learn to earn campaign in a sense where, we'll put out blogs and content and we'll tell the Kaido yappers, say, read this, digest it, create content around it. And that's exactly what they were doing. It's basically like, we will pay you to create good organic content and then educate your user base about it too. And that's pretty much exactly how it's gone. Very very successful. And yeah, we allocated I think like 0.1% of the total supply of the cat token to this Kaito campaign. And then we're also doing like $20,000 in USDC every month. And in line with our productive TVL ethos, the USDC that we give to people is actually directly deposited into Yearn vaults assigned to their addresses. So they're earning yield off those Kaito rewards from like day one as soon as they get them. So, but yeah, it's been an incredible campaign. We've gained a lot of community members. We've gained a lot of people learning and being educated about it. And I think that is what is converting people to actually using the chain. And we've even seen people who have said, this is my first time getting into DeFi. I'm kind of like drinking from a fire hose, learning about DeFi on Katana. And I think that's great too. We're bringing in people who maybe were only interested in like NFTs or SocialFi to actually learning about how DeFi works as well. And so that's also rewarding for like the broader DeFi ecosystem as well.
Yeah. I think one thing, Justin, that I do want to ask is, like from a comms perspective, I think a lot of people have like you mentioned Blast as an inspiration. A lot of people got burnt during Blast, like they didn't get the reward incentive that they were looking for. Was that a part of community initial reception while launching Katana? Like I feel like that never showed on the timeline for me. So you guys obviously did a good job communicating the upsides of Katana. Was that a thought when you were sort of thinking of the comms plan? Like, hey, people should not think or associate this with past deposits,
Yeah,
for example.
I think that's very fair. Yeah. Well, I would also say like Bearchain had the Boyko campaign, which was very very successful. And so I think we definitely took some inspiration there. And on the Blast side, I wouldn't say that we drew inspiration from Blast. I would just say people draw their own like parallels to it. And so like we do just kind of have to talk about it and address it. But the way Vault Bridge works is like significantly different from the way that Blast's mechanism was architectured. So, but yeah, I think that's one of the things that we hold in high regard as well, is being very transparent and communicating things early to our user base. And I think that's paid off too.
Yeah, for sure. And me and KG both, we do a lot of stuff in marketing in the space. We both geeked out when the first Samurai video came out.
Good.
Talk to us a little bit about like the brand language. Like, how did you come up with the Samurai theme? If you have a story around how it was named Katana, I think that would be pretty cool. Like, talk to us about like
And
any of like marketing
and also
stories.
can we get a katana sword as well? I see that you guys are giving them that.
I mean,
I'll see.
that's just
I'll
what
see what
the
we can
back.
do there. The first round of katana swords have already made it out, and
You already
so
is that one on your background?
it is. Yeah, it's a katana sword up there. Yeah, you get. I mean, you got to have one, right? If I work for a project called Katana, you've got to have a katana sword. But yeah, we were thinking like, okay, what would be a good name for a DeFi chain where we're like trying to break the mold and do things like quite a bit differently from like literally every other blockchain period. And we were trying, it took us a while, you want something that resonates with your community, but also something that kind of like hits home to what you're trying to do. And so this is how we got to Katana. It's kind of like a semi long story, but back in feudal Japan, like warriors would use straight general purpose swords, like the tachi and the kotuto, and they were very reliable, but they were unspecialized swords, which is much like today's general purpose blockchains, right? And then as combat evolved, mounted samurai on horses demanded a different type of sword used for speed and precision, because like these straight blades, like they slow them down a little bit, and that would cost them vital seconds in battle. So they were just less efficient, right? They needed a weapon that was built for purpose, and thus the katana was forged for these mounted samurai warriors. It was a curved, single-edged blade that allowed for pretty seamless and fluid draws, and it's designed for precision and speed, and it gave samurais the edge that they needed in combat. And so that's kind of like our inspiration for Katana. It's specialized for the needs of DeFi users, much how the Katana sword in feudal Japan was
Yeah.
specialized for the needs of the mounted samurai warrior.
And how important was it that you needed to differentiate Katana with Polygon, because there will be brand association? How important was that there should be a difference, and these are two different things? Because even though people kind of referred back to Polygon, how important was that difference to make between those two brands?
I
Because
felt
there's an
like
ad where
Yeah, no, I was saying like I felt like when the initial announcement came, it was really intentionally highlighted that it's incubated by Polygon and GSR. I thought that was beautifully done as well. Uh,
Well, yeah, I think that's just because it is. I don't think there was like really any. I mean, I don't think we wanted people to misunderstand or misconstrue what Polygon's involvement is or GSR's involvement is, and it really is just this is just a separate chain, a separate foundation, a separate project. Polygon and GSR are helping to incubate it. Polygon and the ag layer do benefit from the success of Katana. So like all of those, I guess, incentives are aligned there. But it is definitely its very own uh, chain in organization, I would say. I think like in the initial phases, like the Polygon team and Polygon resources was like quite a bit involved. And now that we've launched live on mainnet, they've scaled back significantly, and now it's really just the Katana team that's focusing on all these efforts.
do you chat with the Polygon team a lot? Like, has their morale like boosted a lot since the Katana launch? It feels like Polygon's on like a comeback, especially on the timeline. Like, it's just so bullish these days.
Well, I think there's a lot of things that are driving a lot of people to be excited about Polygon. I think people are starting to see. I think this announcement of Katana and how it's connected to the ag layer has driven quite a bit more attention to the ag layer, which is nice. But currently, there's like 10 chains connected to the ag layer, and what you're going to start seeing is, and this is not really alpha, but this is something you'll start seeing pretty soon, is that chains connected to the ag layer will start tapping in to the deep liquidity and yield on Katana specifically. just through the ag layer. And that was like the intention, right? So like if you have a blockchain that's, just focused on gaming and it's connected to the ag layer, well, let's say they were not connected to the ag layer, all right? They would have to go find a decentralized exchange anyway to come deploy on their blockchain, because you have to have swaps available on your blockchain, no matter what type of blockchain that you are. And that takes a lot of BD efforts, and then they've got to help bootstrap liquidity for that decentralized exchange, when really, if you're a gaming chain, you should be focused on gaming. And here, with Katana connected to the ag layer, this gaming chain, they can just, if someone wants to swap, they can just, through the ag layer, swap on SushiSwap on Katana directly, and it feels like that they never leave the source chain. And that's kind of the idea. Like it gives these ag layer connected chains a much greater opportunity to just focus on what they want to do and what they do best, and not have to worry about these DeFi infrastructure games that they have to play to help bootstrap their ecosystem. And we're already starting to see that. We're in talks with chains that are asking how they can do that, and it's pretty exciting.
Do you want to sort of give like a short, like short shout out to like how a chain could do that? For example, like we'll clip it out and we'll post it separately. Maybe it acts like a natural BD funnel for you guys.
Yeah, I could do that. I mean, I feel like I just kind of did it right there, but
Is there like any other example apart from like swap and swap?
Yeah, sure. I mean, okay, let's say you've got a payments chain that's solely focused on payments. They're connected to the ag layer. They want to be able to give their users the option to tap into some earning opportunities and earn yield on the assets that they're holding on chain. Through the ag layer, they can go through the ag layer to Katana and kind of tap into the yield that's being generated on Katana for their users. And their users, it doesn't even look like they're leaving their, the payments app or the payments chain. Same thing on the gaming side, right? If you want to bootstrap a gaming ecosystem, you don't want to have to deal with onboarding a DEX and helping them bootstrap liquidity. Your users can just trade through the ag layer in SushiSwap on Katana and execute those trades. And on their side, it doesn't even look like they're leaving the source chain. And I think that there's a lot of opportunities there for this cross-chain DeFi composability that's going to bring a lot of opportunities for these like vertical specific chains, like the gaming specific chain, RWA specific chain, payment specific chain. And it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, that's super awesome. I think we covered a lot of like the DeFi side and a lot of what you can do with the Agler, especially. I think this segues perfectly into like the last question that we had. Like, is there anything that you'd want to share with our audience about what's next for Katana? Like any alpha, any semi-alpha, anything that they should look out for?
Yeah, I would say, part of Katana's philosophy is the core app philosophy. And that is, really just focusing on having one protocol per DeFi primitive. So we've got one lending and borrowing protocol, which is Morpho, one decentralized exchange, which is Sushi. We are onboarding a launchpad right now that's called Kensei. So that's kind of some alpha. Look out for them. And then in the future, we'll be onboarding 2 more core applications. One, which will be like a yield tokenization protocol, and another one will be a perps DEX as well. But the main focus and like the most important ones are like lending and exchanges and lending and borrowing, which is Morpho and Sushi. And then, on top of that, we're really encouraging builders to build on top of those core apps and really build out that composability layer, because we feel like that's where so much of the information innovation is going to be thriving, is on that composability layer on top of the core apps. And for me, it's just very, very exciting to see all of these projects, all the core apps collaborate with each other and come up with like cool, new, innovative ideas, and also the apps building on top of them to also collaborate. It's a very collaborative ecosystem, and it's just continuing to grow. And I think that's the alpha to look for, is keep your eye out for yield tokenization and perp DEX, and then also keep your eye on that composability layer and see who's building on top of those core apps.
For sure. Is there any like call out of things that you'd like to see on top of the composability layer? In the past, we've clipped it out, and it's actually brought in like builder interest. Uh, are there any top of line thoughts on what you'd like to see built on top of the composability layer?
Yeah, I think that's really hard for me at this moment because I don't even know if I can answer this because there's so many projects. Like I don't want to name a primitive of someone who's planning to launch soon because
Yeah,
honestly, there's so many projects launching on Katana right now and so many who are about to launch. I sometimes get confused on who has launched and who's going to launch
yeah,
like next week. So I don't want to like leak any alpha on that
for sure.
necessarily.
All right. Thanks so much for coming on, Justin. This has been awesome. We're gonna get a lot of clips out of this. We're really excited about Katana, and yeah, it's back.
DeFi's back. DeFi
DeFi's back.
summer all over again. I'll
All
see you
over again.
guys. I'll see you guys on chain.
Thanks, Justin.